Hello, lovely souls. Welcome back to the Awakening to Your Soul Self podcast. I have Cedric Bertellini here. He is the founder of Emotional Health Institute and co-developer of Emotional Resolution. It's a body-based approach that doesn't just manage your emotion patterns, but it actually gets to the root. I'm so excited to have this conversation with him. Welcome, Cedric.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you for having us, or having me. But
Of course. So I always like to start out with tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to this point.
yeah, I was born in south of France in a very small village. We're about 80 people, and a normal childhood, I guess. A lot in nature. I had the influence of my parents, my grandparents. Live in a small community. Went to middle school, high school. High school wasn't a good time for me, so I decided to learn a job, and I went to culinary school and became a chef. I went to hospitality business school. Came to the USA, working for the Ritz-Carlton Company, first as a chef, then as a food and beverage director, until 2008, 2009, where I quit in 2009 because the economy was difficult and I wasn't in congruence anymore with the company policy. And because also it seemed like a good time for me to do what I had an interest on, which was learning about emotions. I should have said that all this time until my late 20s, I was struggling with anxiety, anger, these kind of things that a lot of people are struggling with, I guess. And always looking to find a solution for myself, and as well as also working with a large team and seeing how emotions are really defining the relationship between people, their job and their life. So an interest in emotion. I went back to France in 2009 to study somatic therapy. Stayed there for a couple of years, came back in the USA in 2011. I started a practice and started researching emotional functioning. Met along the way Dr. Jacques Fumex from France, from the University of Lyon. And we developed a methodology called emotional resolution, or EMRES, based on how the brain constructs emotion. And based on this understanding, how the brain can deconstruct emotional difficulties, debilitating emotional patterns that are not congruent with today's reality. And 2019, I created the Emotional Health Institute. That is a nonprofit corporation. We are operating out of the USA, France, and Japan. And we teach about emotional functionings, and we teach this emotional resolution methodology on 3 continents now.
Beautiful. So there are many of my listeners that I talk to about, all the loud noise that we hear, all the anxious thoughts, the fears, our, society patterns that we have. So from your perspective, what is actually happening in the body when we have all those noise, all the emotions, all the fear and thoughts that we have?
A lot of the fear or belief a lot of the thoughts or the belief that we have, a lot of them are based on fears, and on fears that often are not, I would say again, congruent with our reality. We know today how the brain constructs emotion. We know how the brain keep on repeating emotional difficulties, even emotional difficulties that were built a long time ago and do not serve us nowadays. A lot of our thoughts, a lot of our beliefs are based on the way that we feel in our body, what we're going to call interoception. Today, for example, I know that I'm angry or anxious. I know that I'm sad or happy, not only by the way I feel in my head, right? I know that I'm sad or anxious because of the way I feel in my body, because of the physical sensations that are conceptualized based on the context. So I think a lot of our negative thoughts and a lot of our negative belief or self-limiting belief are based on the way that we feel in our body. And I can tell you where those sensations come from if you'd like to know.
Yeah, of course, yes.
Today, we understand how the brain constructs debilitating emotional pattern, and there's a few things to have in mind. Number one, the brain constantly predicts. That's what keeps us ahead of the game. We can see that with food, for example. If you had one apple one day, the next time you can have a similar apple, you're going to predict what taste this apple is going to have. If you had a cup of coffee, so you constantly predict based on past experiences. It's amazing how we predict about everything all the time. For example, if you did a workout and you're very thirsty, you're going to open your fridge and have some water. At some point, you're going to know that you're not thirsty anymore. Well, it takes over 30 minutes for your body to integrate the water. So your brain predicts exactly how much water you need to drink in order to quench your thirst the moment that you drink it. But anyway, that's the first thing we have to remember. The brain constantly predicts. A second thing that we got to remember is that we understand today that the origin of any emotional difficulties that keeps on coming back is always the same type of event. It is always an event of a moment of trauma.
Yeah.
Now, what is trauma? We think about trauma as a rape, a car accident, something like this. But in reality, a trauma is just an instant that holds too much stress, physical or emotional, for us to take on at the moment when we experience it.
Right.
So for a baby in utero, for a baby at birth, for a very young human being or child, and it's very different what is, I would say, registered in the brain as a trauma. It's just a moment that is too much, too intense for us to take on. And to be very precise, what is at the origin of the emotional difficulties is not the trauma, they are the instant of dissociations happening during a traumatic event. For example, if I'm being sexually abused for, let's say, 5 minutes, within those 5 minutes, I'm not going to dissociate only once. I will dissociate several times. Dissociation is a process that the brain is doing when the pain is too high, so we don't suffer too much during the traumatic event, so to speak. So it's a natural process that is applied naturally by the brain, so we don't suffer too much, but will have repercussions in our life. Now, something that's interesting about that is what you and I, we are aware of consciously now is about, maybe you more than me, but in general, right? It's about 2,000 bits of information per second, processed at the speed of about 150 miles per hour. That's what we're consciously aware of, most of the people. In the same time, our subconscious has the potential to gather 400 billion bits of information per second compared to 2,000, and to process it at a speed of 150,000 miles per hour. So our prefrontal cortex is doing a lot of things for us, but one of the things that it does is filtering information so that we're not bombarded by all this sensorial information, so we can have these conversations, we can live in society. But when there is dissociation, the prefrontal cortex shut down and the subconscious takes over. So every time there is dissociation, you can imagine like a whirlpool of information being gathered from all the senses, and a whirlpool of information being gathered from what's going on in our body physically. And this information, this hurricane of information, are recorded in a way that is non-logical and non-linear. So it's going to take a smell, a situation, a temperature, a color, it's going to take sensations, etc. And every time there's dissociation, the subconscious takes over, just like the black box of a plane, and gather all this information in and out. That happened for any dissociation happening because of trauma. Later on in our life, when our brain, our body, we should say, recognize one or several elements that were present during a specific instant of dissociation, our brain is going to predict instantly what physical sensations we're about to feel based on what was felt during a specific dissociative moment. Those physical sensations that are generated by the body are a memory. Those physical sensations that we call interoception is what let us know that we feel an emotion. So every debilitating emotional pattern is nothing else but an outdated prediction from the brain.
Wow, never thought of it that way. Beautifully said that way.
And I think when it's looked at it that way, it takes a lot of the mysticism of emotion. It vulgarizes what an emotion is, and you recognize that it's just your brain anticipating for you to feel the physical sensation that you're already feeling, in a way. Just like, before you bite into apple, you're going to predict exactly the taste of the apple. It is the same exact process.
Wow, I never thought of it that way. That makes so much sense. So you talked about we're going to talk about EMRES because I'm very curious on it. So can you go a little bit into EMRES and what that is?
Yes, absolutely. EMRES, in theory, is extremely simple. It is really based on the fact that any emotions that are not congruent with today life, our life today, is nothing else but an outdated prediction from the brain. And so what we found is that if you let the prediction, the sensorial prediction, purely the sensations, right? If you let this interoceptive memory, we could say, play out until the end without interfering with it, that means no positive thinking, no breath, no stretching, no glass of water, not a therapist telling you that everything is going to be okay. If you can be with those physical sensations as they change in your body without interacting with them, but just feeling them, those physical sensations will never last longer than 90 seconds. They take between 2 and 90 seconds to transform. At the end of the transformation of the sensations, your brain is anticipating to be hit by the same type of danger that created those sensations on the first place. At the end of the prediction, your brain realizes that you're safe and sound. From that very instant, your prediction is updated. What used to be taken by your brain as a stimulus as a trigger. Now the brain integrate the fact that it is a non-event. So what EMRES does is we can do it on ourselves, of course, but it's creating very precisely an emotional difficulty that the person wants to resolve, and then to invite the client or the person to feel the sensations, and for the practitioner to not take any space, to not tell them that it's going to be okay. No, to create a safe place through our level of attention as a practitioner, so that the client can feel the sensations until the end, and at the end the brain recognizing that nothing is happening. This is how we learn anyway, right? We keep on learning constantly by updating predictions. It is so EMRES in its simplest form is that creating a specific emotion, like somebody wants to resolve it, and then inviting the person to feel all the physical sensations without interfering with them, without going into any type of story about why I feel this way. No. Purely the physical sensations in the flesh as it transforms, and at the end, the memory is updated. This emotion that was re-experienced via EMRES, so to speak, will never come back.
Interesting. That is a very interesting modality. It's basically, it's almost like rewiring the
It's
brain.
exactly what it is. You can say that.
Yeah, so with everything, I think things take time and takes patterns to build. So what kind of patterns do you see when you start working with clients?
People come to see us often for the obvious emotions, right? What I would call the conscious emotions, the anxiety, the anger, the phobia, the depression. And so for us, it's an access door. And it's an entrance door. We're going to resolve what is obvious. This, exactly as I described it earlier. We can ask questions. We can use past situations, never traumatic situation, only situation from today's life. We never revisit the trauma. We have several entrance doors that we can use to resolve those emotions, those emotional difficulties. But as an EMRES practitioner, we work on 3 levels: the conscious, which is why people come to see us. The emotion, which is space; the unconscious, or the unconscious emotions are the emotions that we know are here, but we don't like to look at, right? It's the shame, the guilt, the self-worth, the self-image, all those emotions that do not fit with who we want to be or who we want to display in life. So we work on that, and then we're going to work on the subconscious emotions. The subconscious emotions are emotions that have sensations that are not strong enough to be conceptualized, labeled as an emotion.
Right.
But those tension very much create the dynamics of our life. For example, if I meet you for the first time and my body feels tension, it has nothing to do with you. Maybe it's a smell that my brain recognizes. Maybe it's the shape of your body. Maybe it's your voice. Maybe it's your eyes. It's nothing to do with you. My brain is going to take a detail from you and link it to a moment that was very painful to me. And that's going to create a discomfort, physical discomfort. Or if I feel that when we meet for the first time, I don't know anything about you, but I feel tension, I would say, Christina, there's something about her. And I'm going to make up a story about it, right? I'm going to say, well, but I'm going to believe the story. And chances are we're never going to become friends. We're never going to do business together or whatever it is that we were making for. So these are the subconscious fears, the fear that only are feeling tension, but we cannot conceptualize it. We make up story about them, and they create the dynamics of our life. So we work on those 3 levels when we work with people.
Okay. So do you find that when you start working with people that they kind of get into their inner knowing a little bit more, like they start to hear their inner voice?
Yes, absolutely. Because often people have a hard time, me too, people have a hard time finding out, is it fear or is it intuition? And a lot of the time, people are labeling as intuition something that is fear-based. And the more we resolve our fears, the more it is clear that what we sense might be intuition. So yes, definitely. Seeing things for what they are based on the entirety of our life experience.
Okay. So I think I saw somewhere, I don't know if it was some of your videos or your website, but I saw that you mentioned about wild animals in nature and that they don't hold any trauma. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. It's very interesting. Usually people don't ask me about it. I put it out there, but people are, who cares? But I think it's very interesting. Thank you for asking. At the Emotional Health Institute, we work with ethologists, which are specialists of the behavior of animals, and veterinarian. And what they notice is that the only type of mammals, there's 3 types of mammals that hold on to trauma most: human beings, our pets, and farm animals.
Interesting.
The other type of mammal out there do not hold on to trauma. They process it almost right away. As soon as they're back in a safe place, they let the body shake or whatever, and that's it. It's integrated. They learn from the experience. But what is the the commonality between those three types of mammals: humans, pets, and farm animals. Well, what we have in common is that we control our youngs. Humans control the youngs. We control our own youngs because seeing them in emotional distress make us feel distressed, so we're going to control them so we feel better most of the time as humans. We control our pets almost from the get-go. When they're little, we tell them to do this and that, and we hold them in our arm. We humanize them in a way. And then we control, in some instances, farm animals as well. They need to move faster. We remove the baby from we control. And the fact that we control very early on those three types of mammals, in a way, block this natural capacity to resolve emotional difficulties, block this natural capacity to process fear after the fear is happening to us, after the traumatic event, so to speak, is happening to us.
Interesting. I never would have thought that. I would have just thought that every animal is holding trauma, but I think that makes sense, though.
You'll see, like in nature, when, let's say, the common example is like the tiger running after the impala. If the impala, escape, once the impala is safe, she will shake and then start gazing.
She just takes the stress off.
That's right. Yeah. She's just grazing. Well, actually, it's more than stressing. She doesn't do anything. The body does it. You see, as human beings, we have the tendency to do things. No, she doesn't do anything. The body does it. That's it. There's no conscious action. The same way for us. Often when after a shock, like a car accident, there's shaking happening. And we even sometimes prevent the person to shake. We tie them up, but the shaking is a way for the body to do something. It's not voluntary. It has to happen.
That's so interesting. It's kind of like if you have a dog or a cat and they have to shake it out sometimes, and you're just like, why are they shaking it out? But it's not them. It's their bodies just need to release that energy.
It's happening to them. Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. So when do we kind of stop carrying all this stored emotion? Is this throughout the 3 levels, or is this something that we can work on our own?
So first of all, we can work on it on our own. It's something that we can absolutely do on our own. It is easier to do it on ourselves by ourselves when it comes to conscious emotions, because sometimes we are I've been doing that for a long time, and still sometimes I am overwhelmed by my emotion and I don't think about doing it in the moment. My wife would tell me, do your thing. But so sometimes it's easier said than done. So to answer your question, we can always do it on ourselves by ourselves, theoretically. Now in life, sometimes because of it's a work meeting, because we're busy with the kids, it's difficult to do in the moment. When we stop holding to that, this work is like an emotional hygiene, right? Life is changing all the time, and life is always bringing something new to us. Some people will ask me, well, if you've been doing that for 10 years, how come you're still holding some negative emotion? Because life changes all the time, right? You lose people that you love, and when you lose people that you love, for example, my mother-in-law, thank God, she didn't pass, of course, but she got very sick, and then my wife and I had to stay in the United States. We live in the United States, and then automatically I start thinking, well, what if my dad back in France, if something happened to him, what's going to happen? How do I manage it? So life brings one element, and the brain goes 100 possible directions and trying to find what can go wrong, and that creates anxiety. So one event creates so many fears in the brain because this is what the brain does. So the key, and to try to answer your question, is to, as soon as we realize that there is a fear that is not actually happening, my dad is very healthy, thank God, it's okay, boom, don't question it. You feel the fear, resolve, because it's not congruent, it's not happening, it doesn't serve you. So you start to feeling more and more freer. You start to feel more and more connected to your actual environment and ecosystem when you do your resolutions, your EMRES, as many times, as much as possible, on all the fears that you can catch, even the one that seem obvious. Right? Never take a fear as granted, even if you've been feeling it for years. Approach it, become intimate with it, resolve it.
Beautiful. So what is something that you want the listeners of the audience to take away from this conversation? Whether it's a feeling or a knowing, or what is just something that we haven't spoke about that you want the listeners to know?
I should tell the listeners how they could do this work on themselves by themselves, so they can try it. So how to resolve an emotional difficulty, the most natural way possible, right? Without a practitioner. The key is to catch the emotion at the very beginning. Realize that you're feeling in a funk. No need to label the emotion. No need to understand why you're feeling in a funk and it is not congruent, appropriate to what's happening in your life now. You're opening an email and I don't know. Okay, So
Yeah.
you realize it right away. You're not going to want to wait, because if you wait, you're going to have an accumulation of a lot of emotions, because the brain trigger emotion one after another. So you want to get in as soon as possible to get this specific emotion. Okay, you realize you feel an emotion. The first thing you're going to do is close your eyes, not to so much isolate yourself within, but because it's important to close your eyes to see if you feel safe. It's something else that we learn from animals. The first sign of fear in a mammal is that we stop blinking. So if you're in a space where you cannot keep your eyes closed and feeling comfortable with that, is because your brain doesn't feel safe. So you have to be in a place where your body feels safe, not cognitively, oh, I'm safe at home. No, but some people don't feel safe at home. Maybe there's abuse at home. Maybe you need to be able to close your eyes and feel comfortable with that. That's the key. You feel the emotion, close your eyes, and then you're going to move and feel comfortable with that. And then you're going to move all your attention into your flesh. You're going to feel the physical sensations happening into your body. Here it's important because most of us, we ride the wave of emotion, right? We think that we feel our emotion when we cry or when we scream. That's not feeling the emotion. This is acting from the emotion. Here you got to be completely intimate with the sensations. What makes you say that you're anxious? What makes you say that you're in a funk? What are the physical sensations that make you notice that you're not well? You've got to feel those sensations. You've got to feel 2 to 3 sensations at once, not only one. If you only feel one sensation, your mind has room to go think. If you only feel one sensation, you might try to change it. No, you've got to feel 2 to 3 sensations at once to overwhelm your cognitive with the sensorial. Immerse in the flesh as much as you can. Sometimes say dissolve your attention throughout your flesh. And at this point, you're intimate with the emotion, with the rawness of your emotion. There's no blame. Now you're in control because it's your body, it's your emotion, you're in charge of yourself. At this point become the most difficult part, which is to do nothing. You've got to keep on feeling the physical sensations. As they change in the body, they're going to change. They will change in between 2 and 90 seconds. But as they're going to change, they're going to be uncomfortable often. That's why we control our emotion. That's why we drink. That's why we breathe. That's why we stretch. That's why, I don't know, we smell essences. We have an amazing battery of coping mechanism because we don't want to feel those sensations. Those physical sensations might be uncomfortable, but they are harmless. You feel them in your life anyway. They keep on coming back because you keep on shutting them down. You keep on short-circuiting them. That's why the brain keep on generating them. You've got to feel them. They're not going to hurt you. They're here all the time anyway in your life. You've got to feel them until the end, even if it's uncomfortable. No self-talk, no positive thinking, no imagination, none of this. You feel the rawness of what's happening in your flesh until you feel calm. When you feel calm, it's over.
Wow, that's so interesting. And for the people that second guess themselves, what would you say to them? Like they were like, oh, I felt this, but then it's moved here. I think there's a lot of us that are overthinkers.
Yes, trust what you feel. And at first, follow with your hands. At first, follow with your hands what you feel. When you feel like tension in the throat, but at first, follow with your hands. Everybody can. And one thing I would say is often people don't realize even that an emotion is based on sensations. We have an emotion, we're like, what? No, it's based on sensations. Often people don't have the habit to feel their body. I would say start creating an intimacy with your body. Like, let's say you're thirsty. What makes you realize that you're thirsty? You need to pee. What makes you realize that you need to pee? So start creating this intimacy with your body. Do not take it for granted. Start feeling. And little by little, it's going to become easier and easier to do it with emotions as well.
It's like creating a language with your body.
This is
essentially what you're doing.
Feeling is an action. Feeling is not screaming. This is acting out of something. No, feeling is an action. If you stop feeling, you stop. If you stop feeling, you start thinking, and that's not where it's happening. It's happening in the flesh.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Cedric. Where can people find you, find EMRES and your Emotional Health Institute?
The best way is to type res.com, or they can also go to emotionalhealthinstitute.org. Goes to the same place.
Perfect. Any other tidbits you want to leave towards the end for anybody?
Sure. Yes, in a way, even if you know what happened to you that create the pain that you're feeling today, you can resolve the pain that you're feeling today. EMRES or any other modality cannot resolve trauma, cannot heal trauma. Trauma happened, and we cannot go back in time to undo it. Now, what EMRES can do is to resolve the impact that the trauma created in our life. We do not have to carry the impact of our trauma in our life today. It doesn't take away the value of the pain that we felt at some point. but we suffered already enough. We don't need to suffer today. We can integrate the informations that, because what it is, right? An emotion that keeps on coming back is an information that wasn't integrated. We can integrate it so that the brain can learn from it. So we can live from the epicenter of our entire life, dense, strong of all our experiences, even the worst, but not being overwhelmed by them.
Thank you so much. I hope all you listeners are really getting in tuned and getting some messages from this episode. I feel like emotions is a big thing, and Cedric is really helping us trying to integrate and learn our emotions. So thank you, Cedric, so much for today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you, lovely souls. We'll see you next week.